Welcome to a very special episode of Cosmic Road, where we are very delighted to welcome Dr. Robert Shiepe back to the show. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jack. Happy to be here. I appreciate it.
And if you haven't seen my previous interview with Dr. Shiepe, check it out. He is the man that caught dragons. And by dragons, of course, I mean dragon UAPs. And by caught, I mean on camera. And from this, he makes interpolations where he can see moving objects within that footage that are moving basically too fast for the eye to catch. So what does he catch? Look at that. Look at that. Okay. All right. Look at all this. Okay. So let's just pause right there. So this is a helicopter, obviously, and there are two objects streaking by this helicopter. And what are those objects? Well, those are UFOs. But what he has found is these objects will buzz anything, any object over 150 feet. It doesn't even have to be a vehicle. They do love to buzz helicopters and planes, but they will also buzz birds and balloons and anything else. And he says the demarcation line or whatever is 150 feet. Over that, they will buzz you, and they will go right up to you. Look at that. Look at that. That's insane. Here's a bird. It's buzzing a bird. Well, he is able, like I say, to take these things, and he can stitch together the flight pattern of these objects and make it into one still image where you can see the object that it's moving against or that it's buzzing as a still because it's moving so slowly, and these objects are moving so fast. Blink and you miss them. They are just ridiculously fast. And and then here's two of them intersecting each other, and they will just buzz these ships all day long, all over the world. He is furthering our understanding of the UFO phenomenon in real time, and what he is doing is amazing. He is a true UFO pioneer, and my hat is off to you. But today we are going to talk about something a little different. We are going to talk about a really exciting story about how one of Robert's out-of-body experiences led to the discovery of a UFO in military custody. So please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Okay, without any further ado, let's go to Robert. Please tell us about your amazing story.
Okay, let me tell you 30 seconds of my background real quick because I'm new to a lot of viewers. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I started the first I'm a pharmacist. I started the first mail order pharmacy in 1986. And I went nationwide. And it became the biggest thing since chocolate ice cream. It was very successful. I can't stress it enough. Very successful. And I retired 10 years ago, and 6 years ago, something very unusual. I live in Marina del Rey. It's the largest marina in North America. 6 years ago, the Army and the Coast Guard started to hover over Marina del Rey, and they've never left, and they've been chasing small UAPs. I call them dragons because I thought they were dragonflies. You can check out my channel, Custodian File, on YouTube. Now, to answer your question, yes, Area 51, 1983, I had this out-of-body experience where I was allowed to speak with this entity.
Okay, back up just a second. You said Area 51. Were you at Area 51?
No. Okay. Let me, yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. But I had this very supernatural encounter with this high entity. And I had a few words, and
Can you say, okay, take us through that. That sounds really exciting. Okay, so are you meditating and you're going out of body? What's set the stage for us a little bit?
Okay. Yes, I am meditating. 1983, I was meditating. I was learning how to do this meditation, go out of body, remote viewing. And for some reason, I got really good at it quickly, very quickly. And quickly means within a few months, just within a few months. And basically, I was meditating, I found myself in the presence of a very powerful entity, very powerful. And so I posed the question. I said, what is my life plan? He told me space. I said, wow. And I said, who can help me with this? Virgil. I said, Virgil. And then he told me a few other things. I don't remember it, but I was back in my body. I woke up and I started thinking basically space and Virgil. So it's like, wow, Virgil, I don't even know a Virgil. How is Virgil going to help me? And I don't even know a Virgil. So I thought about it for a few days. And ironically, 1 and 1 is 2. My neighbor's name is Virgil. My neighbor.
That's amazing.
I can record UFOs, and sometimes I can't add 1 and 1. It's funny.
How well did you know your neighbor?
Oh, well, I talk to him all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. He 1983, he was like 83 years old, I would say.
Yeah, Virgil's not a real common name nowadays, so you would think he would be an older gentleman.
Right. Really, like from 100 years ago or more. He, even though he was 83, he looked like he was 103. He was still going, but you can kind of tell his time was spent up. It was over. So this is where it really gets interesting. I mean, you can't even make stuff like this up.
You've already talked to a cosmic entity. I mean, it's already interesting. Okay, but yeah, all right, keep going.
Yeah, that is kind of amazing. Yeah. So I have these.
And by the way, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we've got to circle back to that being. Okay, keep going. Okay.
Well, actually, I think the better story is forward.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So I have these photo books. It's called Contact from the Pleiades. They're 12 by 12, and there's photos of the Pleiadian spaceships from the Billy Myers Switzerland case from the 1970s. Really clear, great pictures. I know some people are saying, no, that just can't be real, but I think it's the real deal. I'm going to have to go with real. So I took these photo books to Virgil. I put them right in front of him. I said, Virgil, I have some questions for you. And my human intuition is like, this guy's not going to know anything. Come on. He's 103 years old. I mean, really, Robert, but more or less, I wanted to just give the universe the benefit of the doubt. So I show Virgil these pictures, and he goes, what is that? I said, this is a real UFO. Well, he goes, what's a UFO? I said, well, Virgil, you lived your whole life. You don't know what a UFO is. No.
He had never seen a science fiction movie or anything. Didn't know what a UFO was. Wow.
Zero. I know. That's what I'm like. This is, like I said, you can't make this up. So I show him picture after picture, and he's like, well, where are they from? Where did you get these pictures, Robert? And I must talk to him for 45 minutes. And he goes, no, Robert, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I just don't know nothing about this. So I'm like, okay. I tried. I mean, I gave the universe the benefit of the doubt. I tried, no big deal. Thank you, Virgil. Well, 2 weeks later, I'm outside on the sidewalk. I see him walking up toward me. And I go, hey, Virgil, how are you? He goes, oh, I'm good. Oh, you know what I did this weekend? And I think it was the weekend of New Year's, 1983. So yeah, I spent New Year's in Las Vegas. I said, oh, okay, that's nice. Yeah. He goes, well, while I was there, I was hanging out with my general friend. I said,
As you
what?
do.
I said, what? What are you talking? He goes, yeah, my friend's a general. So he goes, yeah, I was in the Korean War. Uh, Shame on me for not asking him 1,000 questions. You know, it's just, I'm not a professional reporter or interviewer. So he says, yeah, we were sitting down. And, you know, back then in 83, everyone went to downtown Vegas, old Vegas. So he was hanging out with his general friend. And so he said, General, I have a question for you. Have you ever heard of a UFO?
Love it.
You can't make this up. So the general, I guess, you know, why he broke protocol, I guess the general broke protocol because he said, yeah, Virgil, we have one. Do you want to see it? And Virgil goes, yeah. So the general takes him to the base. I don't want to call it an Air Force base, but if you look on Google Map, there is an Air Force base 15 minutes away, Nellis Air Force Base from downtown Las Vegas. I believe it's the home of the Thunderbirds. Uh, so like, wow, that's, so when you hear this, people say Area 51, 51. When he told me the story, he didn't say like, oh, the general took me on a plane and we flew for an hour or we drove for 3 hours. It's just logically, if an Nellis Air Force Base is only 15 minutes, logically, that's where they went. That's where they went. Unless they have a UFO parked, who knows, in the garage behind a 7-Eleven, which I doubt. So he took him to a base, again, most likely Nellis Air Force, took him up to a large hangar, very large hangar. And when he walked into the hangar, and by the way, I haven't told this story in 40 years because it's just probably wasn't smart, but I figure it's 40 years ago. Obviously, Virgil and the generals passed away. So they're not going to get in
Thank you very
trouble.
much for sharing the story with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, you're welcome. And I figure I don't want to take it to the grave. I mean, what good is history if people take their history to the grave? What good is that?
Okay,
So
so do you know anything about this UFO? Do you know anything about this encounter?
I could tell you what he told me. So when he walks into the larger hangar, there was a smaller hangar inside, maybe 60 by 60. And as he walked up to the smaller hangar, there were windows on the front of it. And he's looking through the windows, and behind the windows are these pictures of UFOs that are tacked to the board, to the wall. So they were telling him, explaining to him, before we show you the ship, we're going to show you pictures. And this is a story that's never been told anywhere. The only way I would know this is if I was there or if somebody told me that was there. So the smaller hangar and the larger hangar with the windows with the pictures of the UFO tacked to the wall. And he walked down a little hallway and the UFO was covered. He didn't say exactly how big. It's hard, but it's probably a pilot ship, 30, 40 feet, and it was covered with a tarp, and they pulled it back and they showed him. And pretty much that was the end of the meeting. And the general said, you know, that's it, Virgil, we're going to leave. And that was what he shared with me in 1983.
That's amazing. Did the general tell him anything like how they had recovered that UFO? Was it from a archaeological site? Was it a crash, a shoot down? Any additional information?
I wish I had that information because the general, if Virgil would have been smart enough to ask, I'm sure the general would have gave it to him. But remember, Virgil's coming from zero.
Right.
This is just not happening. So no, that wasn't offered. So a couple months ago, just for the fun of it, I went on Google Map. I'm looking at Nellis Air. It was when that UFO landed in Las Vegas, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. If this thing landed in Las Vegas, maybe it was trying to land at the Nellis Air Force Base. How far is Nellis Air Force Base from the landing spot? I was trying to calculate that. And during my investigation, I said, you know what? I'm going to zoom in on the buildings on the Air Force Base. Because I just want to know what they look like or what they're named. And if you look on Google Map, you'll see there is a large hangar at the end of the runway. And it goes by the name of Remote Sensing Imaging or Institute, RSI. And basically, when you Google it, they do radiation detecting. So if there's a nuclear accident somewhere, they send these guys to measure isotopes, uranium detection. So that seems like their only job, and it's located on the Air Force Base. And you can look this up, RSI, zoom in. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a weird coincidence. If you had a UFO at an Air Force Base and you wanted to hide it, you would hide it in plain view. You wouldn't put it in a hangar. It says top secret, stay out. You'd hide it in plain view. You would build a radiation detecting facility around the UFO and say, danger, radiation, do not enter. Because a sign like that gets people's attention.
Yeah, I wouldn't go in there.
I wouldn't go in there. If I saw a sign that said Area 51, no trespassing, you're like thinking, God, maybe I could sneak in.
Right.
Or if you saw a sign, danger, high voltage, well, maybe I could look. But you saw a sign that says danger, radiation, I'm not going next to it.
Yeah, you're taking a long walk in the other direction.
I'm going backwards, yeah. So I'm just saying, you want to hide something in plain view? He did say it was in a larger hangar. I'm just saying, theoretically, boy, this thing fits together like a puzzle.
Right.
The general takes him to an Air Force base. Logically, it's only 15 minutes away. He describes in detail the smaller hangar with the mirror, with the windows and the pictures on the wall. This is so bizarre. It has to be real.
Well, why do you think they made him look at the pictures? What was that all about?
I think they do that for any visitor. Think about it. Before they showed you a UFO, they'd show you the pictures. It's just protocol. It's protocol. It's brilliant.
But why do you need to see pictures?
Because you're about to see the ship.
just to prepare you, like to help you with the ontological shock, as they say, as the new buzzword. Is that kind of the idea?
Yes, yes. You go to the beach, you get your feet wet a little bit, and then you jump in.
Yeah.
So they're going to get using photographs, they're going to get your feet wet. And, who knows? If somebody's looking at these pictures and they freak out, they're not going to be invited in.
Right. I mean, well, with the Bob Lazar story, before they let him work on anything, according to Bob, they gave him a bunch of briefing material. And, we don't know how accurate any of that material is, but, it may have served the same sort of purpose, getting over this ontological shock before you actually are exposed to the real deal.
That kind of makes sense. I think any psychologist would agree. That's what I would do if I was there. If that was my job, I'd show you pictures. If I had video, I showed you the videos too. And then I'd explain the ship in detail, and then I'd show it to you. But like I said, it's never been, and it's probably still sitting there at this very minute as we speak. There'd be logically no logical reason to move it because it's in a very safe location.
Do you think they're reverse engineering it, or what are they doing with this thing?
Well, obviously, as time goes by, our technology gets better. They always reverse a little bit more. By the way, I want to tell your viewers, right now my TV is typing everything I'm saying.
Again, it's happening again.
Right now. So my TV is a Samsung big screen. It's unplugged. I'm sorry, it's plugged in. It's turned off. But whenever I do these podcasts, these U.A.P, UFO podcasts, my TV will periodically start to type, start to text what I am saying, and it just did that.
That is creepy. Do you
Yeah.
think it's the men in black watching, or do you think it's the beings doing this as some sort of communication or acknowledgement, or what do you think is going on?
I I think if I had to guess, I've seen no evidence of men in black in my neighborhood. I'm going to guess it's these UAPs trying, they probably have a sense of humor like we do. It's got to be them. Because I think that would be fairly tricky, high technology to hack into someone's TV fairly hard and then start typing what they're saying. Uh,
Right. And that also seems just so low key and subtle for the men in black, you know? I don't, I mean, they go around threatening you and your grandma and your dog, you know, they don't, you know, randomly and obliquely have text appearing on your TV unless it's, you know, some sort of threatening, you know, text, I would imagine.
no, right. That's true. If it was a threatening text, no, it's just repeating what I'm saying. Um, no, it's got to be someone. Uh, it's either the men are black or our space brothers. It's probably the space brothers, just probably supporting what I'm saying because it only happens during these podcasts, during these UFO podcasts.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So you mentioned Space Brothers, and you've also mentioned Billy Meyer. Are you a Space Brother advocate or believer?
Yes, I am. Back in the day in '83, when I was doing the meditation, I have high reason to believe I did go out of body. I was chasing one of the Pleiadian ships. It did land. I'm pretty sure it landed in Switzerland. I landed on the ground to confront the ship. Three occupants came out. It was the lady pilot was standing in the front, and she had two androids behind her to her left and right.
Okay. Back up. Okay. You're blowing my mind here. Okay. Okay. Robert, why did you do this to me? Okay, start from the beginning of the story if you can. All right, set the stage. What's going on?
Because I mean, you brought up the Pleiadians and Space Brothers, and
Yeah.
I I I wasn't going to bring it up, but it's not top secret, so I'll. Yeah, like I said, I was getting really good at this out of body, like ridiculously, like I had studied it for 45 years. Um, so we land, and I walk up to where they're standing, and I can clearly see. I did some watercolors. I'm not an artist, but I did watercolors of the barn. There was a fence around the barn. There was a bench next to the fence. So I walked up to uh, to the pilot, and the next thing I know, one of the androids sticks his hand up to shake my hand, a gesture of shaking hands. But I really had no control. I had tunnel vision. I was just watching what was happening here. I had no control, and I saw my hand go up to shake his hand, and basically he grabbed like the tip of my finger and burnt a circle in it. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 10, the pain. And I said, whoa. I said, whoa, you're not allowed to do that. He didn't care what I said. After that happened, I sat down with the pilot. She says, my name's Manera. We sat down on this bench that happened to be there, and I sat to her left. To her left. She had a clipboard with two sentences on the top. So I went to read what it said, and she telepathically read it to me. She said, you will learn to fly. And then she gets up to walk in the ship, and I'm like, oh no, this ain't over. I'm not turning this off. And I went to grab her, and I was back in my body, just like that.
Wow. What did she look like? Was she a space sister?
Uh, well, although I could see everything clearly, the barn, the ship, the androids and the pilot were a silhouette. I was not allowed to see detail.
Okay. Okay.
So that's probably their way of, and I get it because they knew someday I would tell this story and I would say, this is what an android looks like. Does it look like a robot, or does it look like a human? Or the lady pilot, what did she look like? What color was her hair? How long was her hair? Was she dark or white? And, they don't want to be part of that kind of dialogue. I kind of get that. But she did tell me her name. And I did research, and there is a pilot. If you do the 411 contact from the Pleiades, there is a pilot named Minera. Not a lot is known about her, but I can tell you this. Now, this is where it gets even more impossible. My fingernail when I was back in my body, had a circle burnt in it. Had a perfect circle, about the size of 4 millimeters. So it wasn't a tiny circle. It took up over half my nail.
So there was physical ramifications of this out of body experience.
Evidently, the pain I was experiencing was logically an electric current that was welding my skin to underneath my fingernail, to underneath my fingernail.
That does not sound pleasant.
No, it was a 10. It lasted for a few seconds, but it was a 10. I never, that's the one and only time. I'm not going to say, hey, these guys are evil. It was just, I think really it was to cement the memory, knowing that 20, 30, 40 years would go by and I would doubt what I saw. I would doubt it. So for what it's worth, being a scientist, I let the fingernail grow out as long as possible. I cut it, I put it in a bottle. I still have it. And if there's any laboratory or institute wants to call me out on it, I'll give it to you for analysis.
I love it. I love it. That's an amazing story. Have you encountered any other entities or beings in your out of body experiences?
Wow. Off the top of my head, that's probably the top of the pyramid.
Okay,
Yeah,
so there are others, but then maybe those would be future conversations, or are you? Okay, so this is the big one,
that's the big one. Yeah, that's the big one.
and you think those are Pleiadians, and this is Minera,
Minera. I
because
think
I've
she's
heard that name before.
MENARA, something like that. It's really close. Yeah.
Have you ever tried to reach out to her again in
No,
meditation?
I I was recently thinking because our official liaison in America is Michael Horn, and he knows everything about them. And I was going to reach out to him and say, "Hey, Michael, this is the 411. I met her. These are my pictures. I want to start off by saying, because he knows everything there is about Billy Myers. I want to start off by saying, Michael, is there a bench? Is there a fence around the barn? And is there a bench right there next to the fence? That's where I want to start. And if he goes, yes, yes, how did you know that? Then I'll tell him the rest of the story.
Wow, yeah. If that happens, let me know.
I shall. I shall. I and so that was like, yeah, 1983. And basically, so that's, I guess that's not the start of the paranormal. I was at the age of 5, I was always curious, what's going on with UFOs? What's the 411? I knew at the age of 4 or 5 I'd be a scientist. And I knew at the age of 10 I'd be a pharmacist. I knew that. Uh, so I was always curious in the paranormal, like what's going on? And then I started to get really good with this out of body stuff. Just started to get better and better. And something like that, it goes to your head. It's like, you know what? I'm going to use it for something good. I'm going to find missing children. That's what I want to use it for. And so I did that. And in the back of my head, it was like, you can do this, but you should ask for permission. Don't try to sneak around in parallel universes. Just ask for permission And I didn't want to ask for permission because I was afraid I'd hear the answer no. But yet I wanted to find some missing kids. So I did it. I snuck out, and I think I approximately located this missing child, but very friendly. The universe was upset with me. They didn't like sneaking around, not accessing permission first.
Huh.
So that's when I lost my gift of going out of body.
Whoa,
Yeah,
whoa.
that was a big penalty I paid.
That's harsh, just for trying to help somebody.
Yeah, that's what I said too for the first 35 years. I said, hey, I was trying to, come on, don't penalize me. But then I realized 5 years ago, it's real simple. The correct answer is simple. Just ask, always ask. 99% of the time, people are going to say yes. Just ask. And I didn't. So, but it's still very positive because 1986, I ended up meeting my gifted psychic friend, Glenn Falkenstein. So things were still good, and they're still good. And you can look up Glenn Falkenstein. He was a gifted telepath, time traveler, mind reader, to a level way beyond human, way beyond human. He used to do a radio show, and people would call in, and he would tell everything about them, their whole life. Right now, if he was alive, you could call him. He'd tell you your account number on your credit card.
That's amazing.
Yeah, or the serial number on the money in your pocket. He'd tell you where you were born, where you grew up, your social security, your birthday, your phone number when you were 5 years old. He was never wrong. So he used his gift as a code breaker in the Air Force in Iceland, 1948, 1952.
Wow.
The
Wow.
Air Force, I don't know if they planned it, or if he put himself in Iceland. But Iceland is where a lot of codes leave the East Coast. They go over the North Pole to China and Russia. And that's where we listen. We intercept them in Iceland.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So he was on the Air Force base there. And I can tell you, if you sent a code, a top secret code in 1948 to 52 over Iceland, Glenn would crack it. There was no way it was going to go unsolved. It's not going to happen. And if you go back at the history books, and if you ever wonder how some of these spies were caught, we broke some big secrets, and we caught a spy team. I believe in 1950. I forget their name. They were giving secrets to the Russians on the hydrogen bomb, and they got caught. And the reason they got caught is they were sending secrets over Iceland. And Glenn, basically, it was a blank piece of paper. They told Glenn, look, at 3:00 in the morning, there was a code came in, but we can't break it. So Glenn said, just give me the blank piece of paper. And he read the whole thing. And he said, this is the name of the spy team, and this is where they live in New York. Just go to their house. And that's how they were arrested.
Psychics versus spies. I love it. What a great story.
No
I've always wondered how, people with abilities factored into these, wars and conflicts, because that the CIA and whatever other agencies there are or were, surely have used them.
Oh, 100%.
Got it. They'd be stupid if they didn't.
No, exactly. Incredibly. Yeah. 5 years ago on 60 Minutes, they did a story on the spy people that got caught. Starts with an H, their last name.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I forgot it too. Yeah.
And in the interview, they said this is how they got caught. And they said, oh, they got caught by an intercepted cable. an intercepted cable.
But that was just the cover story. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's how they did get
Oh,
caught.
okay. Okay. I thought you were going to say there was like a more mystical explanation.
Oh, they try to add a few more confusing facts, but the intercepted cable is when it went over Iceland and it landed in Glenn's hand.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's how that was.
Okay.
So that's how it was intercepted. Um, he was on that level. Uh, I think also there was a CIA agent asking Glenn some questions, and this CIA guy wanted to know Booth, John Booth, who shot Lincoln. He had a diary, and they were for the last 150 years they've been looking for that diary. So the CIA guy asked Glenn, like, where is the diary that John Booth had? Where is it? And Glenn told him. He says it's inside an abandoned subway in Brooklyn. And evidently the subway was built like 1840, 1850, something around there. It was abandoned. It was lost in history. All the records were gone. And Glenn said, it's there. Well, around 1970, somebody went looking, based on what Glenn said, somebody went looking for this abandoned subway and they found it. They found the subway. They said they did not find the diary, but they did. They're not gonna admit that.
Oh, I love that. As a novelist, finding, an item like that in an abandoned subway in Brooklyn. I mean, that is so atmospheric and so cool. Just really gets my juices going as a fantasy sci-fi writer.
I think the CIA guy wrote a book and he called it the Cosmo Report. So look it up.
I'll check that out.
But now the CIA guy does not say where he got the clue from.
Right.
But there's only really one person on the planet really that can do this in a matter of seconds. Now there may be some other gifted psychics, but nothing on his level. And I asked Glenn, I said, Glenn, how many people are on your level? He says, well, actually none.
Says, humble.
Yeah, no, he just very politely, he said, no man can tell the future and no man can do what I can do. Very humble. But I said, Glenn, but you can tell the future. Like, is this a mystery? And I thought about it for years and I said, you know what? Okay. Glenn was not God, but he had to be an ET. He wasn't human, so he had to be an ET. And I asked him, I said, Glenn, if you were to sit and talk to an ET, would they be impressed with your telepathy? And he's very humble. He goes, I don't know, but they probably would be.
I would love to see that conversation.
Now, the good part is he did this radio show at Universal Studio, at Studio City in Los Angeles. He did a radio show every day for a year. There goes my TV and it's turning on right now. Who knows, that might even be Glenn doing this. So that's the third option. Instead of our ET brothers, it might be Glenn doing this. So he recorded every show and I have all those recordings and I'm only halfway through, but he does some amazing predictions. Says some amazing things.
Have you ever communicated with Glenn, in meditation? I know you don't go out of body anymore, but do you still have any interaction with the other side? Getting back to you, I guess.
Yes, he does. It's roughly, maybe like once every 6 months, he'll tell me something. The last thing, actually, coincidentally, was just a few days ago. And the time before that was the beginning of the year, January. I'll tell you briefly, January, I met with him. He shows me this silver dollar, 1943. I look at it, I see the date, 1943. I go, what does that mean? I don't know. Nothing happened in 1943. I Googled 1943, nothing significant that I know of. So a couple of days went by. I said, Glenn, I can't figure this out. I'm not going to be able to figure this out. But out of respect, I went online and I bought a 1943 silver dollar. So I bought it. Well, a month later, there was almost a terrible collision in New York airport. Terrible. Two airliners almost collided, and they missed each other like about by 2 seconds. And
Thank goodness.
the flight number that almost caused the accident was 1943.
Whoa. Okay. So you think that was it?
That was, of course, that was it.
That,
And
of course, that was it. Yeah.
that was Glenn saying, Glenn's a good guy. He used his power for good. That was Glenn saying, I stopped that. I intervened.
Okay. Okay.
And then actually a couple of days ago, right before the storm we just had in Los Angeles, uh, that was, I believe, Saturday. Out of the blue, Glenn made it really clear. He said, tomorrow at 3:42, something unusual is going to happen. 3:42. And I told my wife, I texted to myself, I said, well, tomorrow, 3:42, you better be ready. Well, the next day, at 2:42, we had an earthquake here in Ventura County. And I'm like, okay, I'm not surprised about the earthquake because I knew something would happen. But I'm like, Glenn, how did you get that wrong? You were off by 1 hour. You were off by 1 hour. How did you get that wrong? You're never wrong. I thought about it. And in my mind, I think Glenn did us another favor. He intervened, he mitigated, he attenuated the earthquake, and he intervened 1 hour early. That's just me. But this is the level he's on.
Well, have you ever heard of Jeffrey Mishlove?
No.
New Thinking Aloud, really great podcast he does. He's been doing it for a long time. He does these fascinating interviews with really great guests. He talks about philosophy, but also a lot about these kind of out of body experiences and esoteric stuff. And he's the winner of Bob Bigelow's consciousness studies test, his program. Are you aware that Bob Bigelow's consciousness studies initiative, where he was getting an essay for the best proof of survival of death? And there was I forget what the award was, like $500,000 or something. It was a substantial award. Anyway, Jeffrey Mishlove won it. So a really cool guy. He is really interested in a man called the PK Man. If you've ever heard of the PK Man, who was a person.
Psychokinesis, PK?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And he could manipulate the weather, among other things. And he sometimes he didn't manipulate it for good. But when he died, well, years after he died, Jeffrey Mishlove reached out to him in meditation and said, well, I want to conduct an experiment with you. Can you affect the weather from beyond the grave? And I forget the PK man's real name, but he said, yes, I can. And over the next few months in Europe, they tried to do as scientific of a test as possible to affect the weather in Europe over a certain time period. And the results were mixed, but it seemed like it worked. And but yeah, I check out Jeffrey Mishlove, New Thinking Aloud, for all the details about that. I'm just speaking off the top of my head, but those the talks that he gives on that have a wealth of information about the study that he conducted with a being from beyond that can do amazing things like what you're talking about. So I believe that is possible.
Yeah, so do I. I especially after knowing someone like Glenn, I totally believe it. It's not that far of a stretch. Yeah, and by the way, if Glenn was alive, he would have easily won that money. with one finger.
I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of my interview with Dr. Robert Shiepe, a really fascinating discussion, and definitely stay tuned for part 2, which will be coming out tomorrow, where we explore some really amazing territory. So, but if you have enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there. If you want to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, there's a PayPal button below, or consider becoming a channel member. That would be awesome. Meanwhile, there's plenty of other videos to check out on the channel, and I'll see you again next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.